There is a small island overseas called Shangri-La. It is a paradise for the wealthy. As long as you pay a hefty fee to set foot on the island, you can enjoy royal-like service here. However, a girl named Fena is an exception. Countless rich men are eager to pay vast amounts of money just to meet her. Because she is incredibly beautiful, the island owner wants to make a fortune by auctioning her off. In the end, Fena was sold to a wealthy man for a sky-high price of 1 billion. And tonight, Fena's first time will be offered to this man. 10 years ago, Fena and her father Franz were attacked by pirates while sailing. During the battle, her father was killed. Her childhood friend Yukimaru fought to cover Fena's escape from danger, and promised that as long as she survived, he would find her one day. Afterward, Fena was washed up on this small island, where she was kept captive by the island owner. But today, the island owner has sold her to someone else. Fena is extremely unwilling, so she devised a series of escape plans. However, her room was moved to the top floor, which meant her plans had failed. Fena collapsed to the ground, pretending to have a stomach ache. The man escorting her immediately saw through her little trick, and decided to punish her a bit. At that moment, two elderly men broke through the window, and swiftly knocked the men down. Fena was both surprised and delighted to see the two old men, until she heard them address her as princess. It was then that she began to remember that they were her father's bodyguards, Otto and Salman. At that moment, the man on the floor grabbed Fena's ankle, and said, "Since you grew up on this island, you were destined to become someone else's plaything." Fena angrily kicked him, and the group managed to escape outside. Meanwhile, the island's guards were searching frantically for them. Otto planned to act as bait, to create an opportunity for the two of them to flee. But when he rushed outside, he discovered that the guards had already been knocked down. Unbeknownst to them, a group of mysterious masked figures had been secretly protecting them. Due to their unfamiliarity with the terrain, they hastily ran into a dead end. The searching guards immediately spotted them. Salman told Otto to take Fena and escape first. He would stay behind to hold them off. But just as Otto and Fena entered the forest, they were attacked by a group of unidentified people. Otto was knocked down, and Fena was held captive by one of the men, who had long coveted her beauty. Just then, something strange happened. The man's companions were killed one by one. Then, a masked man suddenly appeared, and swiftly killed the man holding Fena. Although the man wore a mask, his eyes were so familiar to Fena. He was none other than Yukimaru, the one who had promised to find her 10 years ago. Just as Fena tried to call out his name, he knocked her unconscious with a blow. When Fena regained consciousness, she found herself on a boat with Salman and Otto. At that moment, the originally calm sky suddenly turned stormy, and a strange island appeared before them. This island is called Goblin Island, and it is home to a group of wandering samurai. Seeing that Fena and the others had safely arrived, the 7 samurai immediately returned to report to the village chief. This old man is the village chief, Sanada. Fena asked him why he had brought her here. Sanada took out a crystal from his pocket. It was a crystal that Fena's father had entrusted to Yukimaru before his death, and he had instructed Yukimaru to protect this crystal with his life. What secret lies within this crystal, Sanada and the others still have not been able to uncover. Fena was curious as to why the village chief would save her. Sanada told her that Fena's father had once helped them, and this island was a gift from her father, given to them as a place of refuge. To repay Fena's father, he had been searching for Fena all these years. Sanada believes that only Fena can unlock the secret hidden in this crystal, but Fena has no idea, as it was her first time seeing this crystal. The next morning, a girl named Karen took Fena on a tour of the village on the island, and introduced her to the masked figures who had rescued her. But to her disappointment, she did not see Yukimaru. That evening, Fena sat alone in the pavilion, holding the crystal in her hands. Suddenly, Yukimaru appeared beside her. Although Fena appeared calm, she was actually extremely nervous inside. Finally, Fena couldn't hold it in anymore. She spoke first, but whenever she was excited, she would talk a lot. Yukimaru had never been able to stand her talking too much since childhood. Every time, he would gently tap her on the head. Then, they began to talk about the crystal. Fena knew nothing about the secret of this crystal. She didn't understand why her father had taken her on such an adventurous journey 10 years ago. But Yukimaru felt that everything seemed to be connected to Fena. Therefore, he believed that only she could unlock the mystery. Yukimaru's words made Fena fall into deep thought. After returning to her room, Fena made a firm resolution. to complete the unfinished mission her father had started years ago. So, she cut off her long hair, as a symbol of her determination. After a night of deep reflection, Fena finally remembered a sentence her father had said before he died 10 years ago. Go to Eden. Fena thought that perhaps once she reached that place, she would be able to uncover the secret of the crystal. Sanada admired Fena's courage, but he believed that her strength alone would not be enough. So, Sanada summoned the 7 samurai who had rescued Fena earlier. Sanada ordered them to escort Fena all the way, until the truth was revealed. The next day, they set sail to search for the so-called Eden. That day, they arrived at the free city of Barbara. This was the place where pirates from all over the world gathered. Even the government and the navy could not interfere. Fena and her group went to the island to buy the necessary supplies. Once on the island, the group split up. Fena found that wearing a skirt was quite inconvenient. So the twin brothers, Enju and Keed, accompanied her to buy clothes. While shopping, they accidentally discovered an important clue. The crystals sold in this shop were very similar to the one Fena's father had. So Fena asked the shopkeeper about the origin of these crystals, but the shopkeeper replied that he would tell her where the crystals were made only if she agreed to drink with him. Enju and Keed decided to teach him a lesson, and after their harsh interrogation, they finally got the information out of the shopkeeper. The crystals were produced in a factory in Germany. On their way back, they were suddenly blocked by a group of people. The leader was the wealthy man who had bought Fena at the auction. Their goal was clear. They wanted to take Fena back. A female warrior immediately attacked. Although Enju and Keed were strong, they had no choice but to focus on defense to protect Fena. Meanwhile, Yukimaru, who had been fishing, rushed out when he heard from his companions that Fena hadn't returned. He quickly found Fena, who was being surrounded. Yukimaru charged into the crowd and took down 8 of the attackers in an instant. Enju and Keed told him to take Fena and leave, while they would handle the rest. After Fena left, Enju and Keed unleashed their true strength. They easily defeated everyone. Yukimaru, carrying Fena on his shoulder, ran at full speed, but they were ambushed on the way. Yukimaru was shot in the arm. Once back on the ship, Fena helped him bandage his wound. Because the 3 of them had caused unnecessary trouble by being too playful, they were punished by the captain. But the wealthy man fared worse. Because he failed to capture Fena, he was thrown into the sea to be fed to sharks. It turned out he was just a puppet. The real mastermind behind everything was the man with blonde hair. He was the one who truly wanted to obtain Fena. After several days of sailing across the sea, Fena and her group finally arrived at their destination. This was the place where the crystal had been produced. But when they inquired at several shops, they were told that no one had seen such a crystal. Just as Fena was feeling disappointed, a sexy blonde woman walked up to them. The girl's name was Arya. When Arya learned that the secret hidden inside this crystal was of great importance to Fena, she decided to help them. Arya took them to find the village chief, as all crystals produced in the village were inspected by him. This old man, named David, was the village chief, and he was also Arya's grandfather. David carefully examined the crystal and confirmed that it was made in their village. He then used the code on the crystal to trace the order information from years ago. The crystal had been mined in France and processed here by the saint, Joan of Arc. These details were all correct. However, there was a problem with the timeline. Joan of Arc had been executed by burning at the stake in 1431, yet the production date of the crystal was 1436. This meant that the crystal was made 5 years after the death of Joan of Arc. Immediately, the atmosphere grew heavy, and everyone fell silent. This clue was a major breakthrough in unraveling the mystery. Fena expressed her heartfelt thanks to Arya. They then immediately set off for their next destination, the original mining site in France. This abandoned quarry was the location where Fena's crystal had been mined. Upon entering, they discovered a temple inside. Further in was an underground quarry, with skeletons and dead bodies scattered across the floor. They didn't walk far before they came to a fork in the road. Since everyone trusted Fena's intuition, they let her decide which path to take. At that moment, a memory suddenly flashed in Fena's mind. She quickly chose the path to the right. Following Fena's keen instincts, she led the group through many paths until they reached a stone door. Yukimaru was curious how she knew the way. Fena explained that she had been here before. Indeed, Fena's memory held many hidden things, and some memories were triggered by the environment she was in. With the memory that surfaced in her mind, Fena opened the stone door in front of them. Once inside, Makaba lit an oil lamp nearby. and the blue flames immediately illuminated the dark space. The group walked to a central device platform. Fena inserted the crystal into a slot, and they discovered that the crystal seemed to contain some sort of impurity. Then they remembered something the village chief had said. The crystal held something invisible to the naked eye. Sure enough, they found that the crystal contained several Roman numerals arranged in a neat line. After careful observation, they realized that these were coordinates for a specific location. At that moment, Fena seemed to hear someone calling her, so she went alone to a room. This was the very place where Joan of Arc had been buried. Suddenly, a hand covered Fena's mouth. Meanwhile, her companions noticed Fena was missing. As they prepared to search for her, a group of pirates suddenly appeared. The one-eyed woman was their leader, and her name was Grace. She took Fena hostage and demanded that Yukimaru and the others hand over the coordinates they had just obtained. Grace knew that the coordinates led to Eden. With no other choice, they handed over the note containing the coordinates to her. However, Grace did not keep her promise to release Fena. She took Fena with her as a hostage and left the area. Before leaving, she destroyed the entire exit, but Grace had clearly underestimated the samurai of Goblin Island. They quickly began to devise an escape plan, and used the remaining explosives at the site to blast open the top of the cave. In this way, they successfully escaped the cave. Fena was captured by Grace and taken aboard a military ship. This ship belonged to Rear Admiral Abel of the Navy. Abel approached and untied the ropes binding Fena. When he saw the marks on her hands and the wounds on her neck, Abel was instantly filled with rage and ordered Grace to leave. After Grace left, Abel kneeled on one knee, kissed Fena's hand in apology, and then brought her some snacks to eat. He told Fena that he knew her mother. Abel praised both Fena and her mother for their beauty, saying they were alike. Fena, curious to know more about her mother, asked Abel for more information, but he said he would tell her later. Abel then spoke about the samurai on Goblin Island, calling them murderers and advising Fena to stay away from them, but Fena did not believe his words. Meanwhile, after escaping the cave, Yukimaru and the others planned to rescue Fena immediately, although they had handed over the note with the coordinates to Grace. Karen still remembered the numbers on it. Just then, Shurtan stopped them. He had reported the situation to the village chief, Sanada. Sanada ordered them to return to Goblin Island immediately. The truth was, Sanada was using Fena. They had an important mission assigned by the Imperial Court. Their ancestors had ventured overseas years ago to search for one of the lost 3 sacred treasures, the Sword of Kusanagi. The location of the Sword of Kusanagi was said to be in Eden. Besides the national treasure they wished to recover, Eden was also said to contain treasures capable of controlling the world. It was famously known as Earth's treasure vault, and within Fena's memory, there was a hidden clue that could lead them to Eden. Abel told Fena that the samurai wanted to use her to find the legendary Eden. Fena was unwilling to believe that her companions, whom she had come to trust, would deceive her. Seeing Fena's innocent expression, Abel couldn't help but recall his past with her mother, Helena. Abel and Helena first met in a beautiful garden, where Helena was dancing. Abel instantly fell in love with her. From that day on, they often chatted together, and Abel, who loved to paint, had Helena as his model. They became each other's support, making promises of everlasting love. But one day, Abel had to leave for a while. When he returned, he discovered that Helena was pregnant with another man's child. Abel called out Helena's name, but she was stopped by Franz, who stood beside her. To Abel's despair, he found out that the father of Helena's child was the king, and the king was his own father. Soon after, Helena ran away with Franz. The king, upon learning of this, ordered a nationwide manhunt for her. Years later, she was finally captured. When Abel saw her again, her long hair had been cut short. He was devastated and asked Helena why she had abandoned him. Helena, however, said little and only told him, "This was my mission." Not long after, Helena was burned at the stake by the king's orders. Abel watched in agony as she was reduced to ashes. From that moment, his heart died with her. The loss of his beloved plunged him into despair, and began his descent into darkness. At the same time, Yukimaru and the others insisted on rescuing Fena. They didn't care about any so-called mission. However, Shurtan told them that Kay was coming. Upon hearing this name, fear suddenly filled everyone's hearts. This was because Kay was the strongest samurai among them. If they defied the orders, Kay would immediately treat them as traitors and slay them. But Yukimaru, even at the risk of being branded a traitor, still decided to rescue Fena. This was because, 10 years ago, He had sworn to protect Fena no matter what. So, Yukimaru sailed alone to rescue Fena. Meanwhile, Fena was being beaten by Grace. This was because Grace had noticed that the necklace Fena was wearing was identical to the one she had given to Abel years ago. Thus, she confronted Fena and demanded to know what her relationship with Abel was. When Fena refused to speak about the necklace, Grace decided to take her back to her ship and torture her slowly. But Abel stopped her. Abel warned her that at this distance, he could hit even a fly, and ordered her to release Fena immediately. Grace reluctantly let Fena go. Before leaving, Abel told Grace to completely disappear from his sight. Grace and her companions were unwilling to be treated as mere tools. Although they had obtained the coordinates of Eden, only Fena could unlock the treasure there. So, they planned to use force to seize Fena. At this point, Fena was taken to a room by Abel. Abel showed her a treasured painting he had kept for years. The person in the painting was Fena's mother, Helena. It was clear that he had special feelings for Helena. Just then, their ship was attacked by Grace's cannonballs. Abel immediately ordered the captain to use explosive shells. These were special weapons developed specifically for attacking walls. Grace's ship was destroyed in an instant. She didn't expect Abel to be so heartless. After all, she and her companions had worked for him all those years. The whole ship went up in flames. Fena watched in terror as the ship burned in the distance. It reminded her of the scene from 10 years ago, when she and her father were in peril. At that time, the ones who attacked them were not just Grace, who had just been blown to bits, but also a group of Navy soldiers in blue uniforms. Recalling these memories, Fena was immediately filled with fear toward the soldiers in front of her. Instinctively, she shouted out Yukimaru's name, and just then, Yukimaru appeared. He swiftly knocked the surrounding soldiers to the ground. However, at that moment, a gunshot rang out. 2 bullets struck Yukimaru's body directly. When Yukimaru saw that the one who had fired was Abel, he instantly remembered that Abel was the one who killed Fena's father. As Yukimaru fell to the ground, Fena hurriedly rushed to his side. At that moment, Abel directly ordered his soldiers to take Fena back to his room and to kill Yukimaru. In this critical moment, the samurai from Goblin Island appeared just in time. They refused to abandon their friend and unanimously decided that, even if it meant disobeying Sanada's orders, they would help Yukimaru rescue Fena. With the enemy's numbers overwhelming, Makaba immediately set off a smoke bomb and, along with Yukimaru and Fena, took the opportunity to escape from a warship. Abel calmly watched the whole scene, for he knew they would meet again soon. Though they successfully rescued Yukimaru and Fena, Yukimaru, with 2 bullets in his body, was bleeding heavily. He needed the bullets removed quickly. Therefore, they had to change their course and head to a seaside town, where they knew a doctor. After the bullets were removed, Yukimaru was out of danger. Everyone was grateful to Fena, because it was Fena who had been taking care of Yukimaru all this time. However, the stubborn Shurtan believed that they had been bewitched by Fena. After all, everything started because of her. Shurtan called her a witch who enchanted their hearts. Coincidentally, Fena overheard this. The reason Shurtan called her a witch was because of something village leader Sanada had said. Sanada believed that Fena might charm people's hearts, just like her mother. Sanada had once seen how Abel went crazy over Fena's mother. Thus, Sanada had specifically warned Shurtan that if his companions were enchanted by Fena, he should kill her. Fena couldn't believe that Shurtan would say such things, but Shurtan stated that they had disobeyed Sanada's orders to help Fena. This clearly shows that Fena has bewitched their hearts. Tsubaki intervened, calming the emotional Shurtan, saying that it was their own decision, and they should not take their anger out on Fena. In the evening, Fena found Shurtan, who was still conflicted. Shurtan said he would kill her, but Fena didn't believe he would hurt her. Besides, Shurtan had even taught her archery. He knew she was clumsy and slow to learn, but he patiently guided her. So Fena didn't believe that such a gentle person could really bring himself to kill her. As she spoke, Fena's emotions became more intense. The more agitated she became, the more she spoke. Unable to bear her rambling any longer, Shurtan walked over and pinched Fena's face. When he saw her face squished from the pinch, he couldn't help but laugh. He finally understood why Yukimaru always tapped her on the head. It was because, whenever Fena got excited, she wouldn't stop talking. In the end, Shurtan was moved by Fena's sincere words, and decided to accompany her on her journey. Their next destination was the legendary Eden. After several days of sailing, They finally arrived at the coordinates. However, what they saw was a very tiny island. This led everyone to believe that they had mistaken the location. Yet, in the very next second, a gigantic island slowly emerged from the sea. Everyone was left dumbfounded in shock. The island seemed as though it were waiting for Fenna's arrival, just as if Eden itself was guiding Fena to find it. They walked through a forest of red leaves. They arrived in front of a large waterfall. Behind the waterfall, they discovered a cave. After coming out of the cave, what met their eyes was an ancient ruin. This magnificent sight shocked them once again. Since setting foot on the island, Fenna's intuition had become exceptionally keen. She felt as if she had been here before. Everything here was very familiar to her. Fena led them to a gigantic stone gate. She simply gave a gentle push to the mechanism on the stone door, accompanied by a violent jolt. The enormous stone door automatically swung open for them. Upon entering, what met their eyes was an ocean of gold, and this was the legendary treasure. There were countless gold coins here, and a variety of jewels. Shurtan went off on his own, because he had a task entrusted to him by Sonata. Sure enough, in a hidden chamber, he found their nation's treasured artifact, the Sword of Kusanagi. Fena. She led Yukimaru to a mysterious cave. When she saw the stage composed of grids before her, a flood of memories instantly surged in Fena's mind. Fena took off her shoes and armor, and involuntarily began to dance on that stage. After Fena finished a dance, specific squares on the stage lit up in sequence, and immediately, a row of gigantic steps appeared before Fena. The answer was right before their eyes. Fena took Yukimaru's hand, and together they stepped onto the stairs leading to Eden. Meanwhile, Abel also brought his army close behind. Fena and Yukimaru walked towards the stairs, and the view before them was like paradise. They hadn't walked far before they saw a massive, broken ark. Meanwhile, Fena's companions were engaged in combat with Abel's army. In order to prevent these naval forces from hindering Fena and Yukimaru, they resolved, with a determination to the death, to hold back this group of naval soldiers. Although the samurai from Goblin Island were extremely powerful, the enemy numbers were simply overwhelming. As these naval forces delayed them, Abel left on his own to search for Fena. At that moment, Fena was immersed in the scene before her. In the very next second, the sky suddenly underwent a dramatic change. Fena turned around to look, and saw Abel walking directly towards her. At that moment, he had already fallen into madness. Even his eyes had turned red. At this moment, Abel mistook Fena for Helena, and he regarded Yukimaru as Franz, the one who had once taken Helena away. And Yukimaru and Abel swiftly clashed in battle. However, during the battle, Abel was momentarily distracted, and Yukimaru seized the chance to cut off one of his arms, and Abel also slashed Yukimaru's abdomen with a single strike. Seeing this, Fena immediately stepped in front of Yukimaru, but the crazed Abel wanted to kill even Fena. At that moment, a burst of flames suddenly erupted behind Abel. Then, Helena's figure appeared amidst the flames. After many years, they finally met again. When Helena called out his name, Abel shed tears. He slowly walked up to Helena, expressing how much he had missed her all these years. Helena embraced him tightly, but Abel lacked the courage to return her embrace. His hands were stained with too much blood. He didn't want to soil Helena with his bloody hands. Helena held him even tighter, saying that she didn't care about that. A man falls from grace because of a woman, therefore, only that same woman can redeem him, just like Abel. Then, Helena invited him to a world that belonged only to them. But in truth, Abel had already died from blood loss moments earlier. What they were witnessing now was his soul conversing with Helena. In the end, Abel's body disappeared into the flames. Though it was Fena's first time seeing Helena, she knew immediately that the person before her was her mother. Helena told her, "It's up to you now, you'll be fine." With those words, she vanished. At that moment, Franz, who had already died, suddenly appeared. Before Fena could react, Franz suddenly transformed into Abel's follower, Cody. Cody explained that both he and Franz were observers. They were the ones documenting Fena's story, but Fena couldn't understand anything they were saying. Cody then told Fena that her father was a king, and her mother, Helena, was the previous Miko. The memories Fena had were the memories of past Miko, and the guidance of her ancestor, Joan of Arc. Everything Fena had experienced was a test to see if she had the qualifications to become the next Miko. Each Miko had their own responsibilities, and Fenna was born with the role of the Maiden of Choosing. Her responsibility was to make choices. The choices she had to make were to destroy and create, or to preserve. Simply put, it was either the destruction of the world or the preservation of the world. Fenna couldn't comprehend what they were saying. She never imagined that she would be tied to the fate of the world. Eden believed humanity would eventually bring about its own destruction, because humanity was driven by violence and always plundered due to greed. Fenna's responsibility was to determine whether human civilization's time had come to an end, or if there would be a distant future. She had to make the choice. Eden showed her an image of what might happen in the future. The samurai from Goblin Island would ultimately die on the battlefield. That was Fenna's first choice. She could do nothing, let time pass and let these events unfold. Her second choice was to destroy and recreate, resetting everything in the world. Only she and Yukimaru could stay on the Ark, free from the cycle, waiting for the rebirth of human civilization. No matter which option she chose, it was too cruel for Fenna. She was overwhelmed with emotions and didn't know what to do. At this moment, the illusions of her companions appeared before her. Encouraged by them, Fenna gathered the courage to make a decision. With that, the giant island began to collapse. When Yukimaru saw Fenna again, she spoke to him as if bidding him farewell. After Fenna made her choice, it meant her mission as Miko was over, and she would lose all her memories. Fenna didn't want to lose the precious memories of being with everyone, especially the moments she had spent with Yukimaru, but she had no choice. Yukimaru tightly embraced her and said that no matter what happened, he would always be by her side. In Fenna's final moments, she finally spoke her heart to Yukimaru. "I truly love you." When Yukimaru woke up on the beach, he saw Fenna in the distance. Though her hair had turned black, Yukimaru immediately recognized her. At that moment, Fenna had lost all her memories. Yukimaru gently told her, "Your name is Fenna, my name is Yukimaru." Later, in their efforts to help Fenna regain her memories, they sailed the seas, taking her back to all the places they had passed during their journey. Though the anime never explicitly revealed the choice Fenna made, it was clear that her choice was not to destroy and recreate the world,